Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast,
where we believe that the world can be changed one woman at a time.
Your journey to becoming more present, healthy, and joyous starts right now.
Hello, Women and Wellness Tribe. Dr. Sonya and I have a very passionate topic that we want to talk about today. And this is something that we are all being affected from all across the world. And we've been pretty quiet on the subject for a few reasons, but we want to have more of a thought-provoking conversation with you guys today and not tell you how to think or what to think for that matter, but just make sure that you are questioning and thinking so that you can make the right decisions for both yourself and for your family. So, Dr. Sonya, what are we talking about today?
So many things. And I think the big piece is that information discernment, how we receive information from our outside world, how we can discern it, and how we can see what fits for ourselves and our family and what feels right. So we're going to be talking a lot about, things that have been mandated around the world for various reasons. And insight or a question that I had in my mind these last couple of days was that if, we have so much power through our governments to mandate certain things to help from their lens support the population's health, why for so long have we been fed this information about certain foods, certain chemicals, so much in our environment? The list could keep going on and on and on.
Where do we start?
Exactly. Where do we start and where do we end? So why haven't those things been mandated to get them out of our environment so that we can be a healthy population that's less vulnerable to things from the outside world like viruses and things like that to invade? So I think that's what we really want to dive into is like, well, if you can mandate people have to wear masks to prevent a spread of a virus, let's mandate organic food. Let's mandate Coca-Cola, Nestle, I'm naming them, Kellogg, these companies to do better and provide healthy food and not processed foods filled with sugar and colors and things that we know that are scientifically proven to do harm to our children and to ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why doesn't the government, this is the question I have.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the government, if they are so concerned with the health of their country, their people, make it easier for people to be healthy? Meaning, why not give breaks for people who are healthy and fit and take care of themselves, whether it be in taxes, whether it be a stipend for a gym membership, or make supplements like vitamin D, like covered. Why don't we do those things instead of, just pushing them aside?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, a lot of people are going to say, Dr. Caitlin, that's conspiracy theory. Our government is only here to protect us. The government is a business. It's an agency. And we have to understand that they're not scientists, they're not medical doctors, they're not anything. They're making decisions based off of the information that they are given, which may not be full truths. And we're going to talk about full truths in a minute. But, why not make, like you said, organic food more accessible to everybody? Why not charge those companies that you listed off, which are some big ones, like let's throw in Cadbury, let's throw in, you said Kellogg's and Nestle and like the big ones, Post might have merged actually, but why not make them pay more money in order to use those chemicals, those products in their, products, in their prepackaged food, if that's something they want to do, because I guarantee it. If they got a fine, not even a fine, but like there was a fee associated with them using certain like ingredients, they would think twice about using it. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because I forgot the woman's name. I think it's Robin. I don't know if you remember, she's done a TED talk on the food industry, and she talks about her story because she's in finances, and she was hired to look at revamping the whole system to see how they could save money per product, essentially. And the way they do that is to cut corners by adding more additives, by adding more sprays, by doing all these things so that the shelf life will be longer and many other things there. And she started to understand that these companies are not out there to provide health. And the reason why she started questioning things because her kids were getting sick. And she started to realize that just because it's in the grocery store, it doesn't mean that it's something that's healthy for you. And I'm going to try to find her name so we can put it in the show notes for everybody, because her TED Talk was amazing. And again, it's just receiving information.
I know exactly who you're talking about, because we actually, years ago, back in the beginning, did an episode just on this. So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so you can go back and listen to it, because we literally broke down her TED Talk and discussed her findings and what that means in, our world as practitioners. How do we look at that? And what does it mean to you guys as consumers of those types of products? So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I want to kind of talk about like the emotion behind all of this, because there's so much emotion when it comes to masks, or even the discussion now on vaccines, on like what's going to help support us. And there's a lot of emotion between individuals, between families, between friends. And I would love to see that same passion for this topic, for the topic of food. Like, how dare you put color in our food that's going to harm our children? How dare you put chemicals in our water without providing a filtration system for every household or within the city plan to help support pulling the chemicals out once the water is clean, and then remineralizing to support this foundational nutrient that the body requires. And like, I want to see the same passion for all of these things. And you were talking about the incentives. Like, we used to have that incentive in Canada. Before, they would give families money if the children were doing physical activities. They took that away. They took that away a little while ago. And I remember when that happened, I'm like, why would they take something like that away when it can support families that maybe are lower income, but want their children to be in sports and want their children to be active? Like, why would you take something like that away that's going to provide such a great foundation for our kids to learn about their bodies and to learn about health? Let's mandate mindfulness in every school. So every morning the kids are getting tuned into breath work, meditation, prayer, whatever it is for that specific school, but to get them set in a way where they understand that, their self-worth and what they feel about themselves, all these things matter before the numbers and the reading and everything else that's being taught. There's so much that could be mandated.
Well, and there's a lot of things that could be mandated that don't cost anything in addition. So there was actually been studies done that showed when low income schools implemented meditation, detention rates and everything went like down to zero, because kids actually learned how to deal with the frustrations or the anger in a productive way versus a violent physical confrontational way. And that's really what we need to be doing now, because we are living in a very angry, confrontational world at the moment. I would be completely lying if I said that I wasn't upset with the things that are going on, the things that I'm seeing, and, how people are treating one another with everything going on at the moment. So my meditation has gone up tremendously, because if I don't, I don't know what I would be right now.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable for me too. And there was a time where I wasn't doing it as regularly as I do, and I noticed myself spiraling internally. And so I had to pick that back up. So if we are able to teach that to our youngs at a young age, it's that emotional regulation that you were speaking of, then that's going to teach them to regulate their emotions. Because then these are the kids that are going to be making decisions for our communities in the future. So we can set them up for success by mandating healthy food, by mandating meditation and physical activity, so that they can have that foundation going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, I think another thing that we need to do as a society is start to understand where the information we're getting is coming from. So I'm going back to the topic of, is what we're being shown full truths, partial truths, or no truth at all? And really, it's on us as an individual to do the research to find out, is this factual? Is this 100% true? And then how does this affect me? Or what am I going to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking and I'm calling out the media, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
News channels are notorious for creating headlines that are going to be attractive, that are going to catch your attention. Because once they have your attention, then they can give you the information that they want you to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strategy to get attention, like you said, to create an emotion. Because it always goes back to our emotional decisions, right? So when there's an emotion provoked, we have a meaning behind that emotion, and now we've tied it to this fear of essentially death, right? Because that is like the big fear, the big elephant in the room that we're all trying to avoid with certain decisions that we're making. And then if they can just like nudge at that a little bit, just poke at it a little bit, we're going to get drawn in. And this isn't new. This has been going on for years and decades. And whether it's from a health perspective or a perspective of, hey, you're not enough, so you need this product to feel better about yourself. I mean, it's their job. So it's not that we can even like fully blame them for doing their job. It's just us understanding, how can we take that with a grain of salt? How can we discern the information and not have it take over our entire being and our entire emotional state?
100%. And I lost my train of thought as to what I was going to say with that. But what ends up happening is, this is what I was going to say. Fear sells.
Yes.
Love, joy, happiness does not sell. That is why, there is no news station out there that just has the good things that people do. And they might have a story here and there that's lighthearted or pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, but there's not a single news station or newspaper or anything that just talks about the good that's being done in the community or humanity or anything like that. And it's because they don't make money off of those stories.
I know, it's so unfortunate. And I do think, if you think about the things we watch as well, what that we choose to watch, whether it's a movie or a show, if there's no drama in it, if there isn't a problem that needs to be solved, we don't get drawn in. If everybody was just happy, everything was going really great, there wouldn't be that plot that we're sinking our teeth into, whether it's a book or a movie. And I think that's kind of what's happening, and it's reflecting in real life too. There's a part of us that almost likes that component, because then there's good and bad, right? Good and evil. There's the Avengers versus the other side, right? There's Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker. There's these polarities that we have in our world, that we're always looking at things in this black or white way, and we're not used to living in the gray. We're not taught to live in the gray and to be flexible and to not have to suffer to get what we need. We are taught the opposite. So I do feel like we have this slight addiction to suffering. We have this way of being where we look for what's wrong before we look for what's right, because it creates this common bond in humanity, because it has in the past histories, when there's been wars, when there's been other things going on, when there's a bully, there's, you know, people then come together and stand up together. So it creates this like collective consciousness. And my hope is that we shift that we can still have that collective consciousness, but in a way that's elevating, instead of having to like dig down into the dirt and then come up. And, you know, I feel like that's kind of like the bigger picture of all of this, is for us to start thinking more of like, what can we do to elevate ourselves rather than stay in the muck of things.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And when you were talking about, you know, as humans, what we focus on, we don't typically, consciously anyway, focus on all the good stuff, not all the time. And I can tell you from being a practitioner for 11 years, the people that either don't do what I tell them to do, or they're not getting well at the rate in which I want them to get well, are the ones that I focus on. And there's very few, don't get me wrong, but instead of focusing on like the 98 out of the 100 that are doing amazing and they're so grateful and their lives are completely changed, I focus on the 1 or 2 that, you know, are not doing what they're supposed to, or are having additional struggles because XYZ for this length of time has gone on. And that's crazy. Like when you think about it, that is absolutely crazy, but we do it all the time. So guys, Dr. Sonya and I are not immune to this. Like we know this, yet we still deal with it. And the good thing about it is becoming aware and conscious, because when you're aware, then you can change, you can flip it and be like, wait a minute, hold on here. What am I doing to myself? I'm driving myself crazy. Let's take a step back and like, let's actually look at all the positive stuff. So don't feel like you guys are the only ones, because it's still something that I deal with on a pretty regular basis.
And I think we all do. If you look at the aspects of our mind, and I know we're kind of going on a different tangent now, but I do feel like it's relevant because that's how we receive information, is that we all have this like negative mind, positive mind, and then we have this neutral mind. So these thoughts that we sometimes have where we're focusing on what's not working can also be a gift, in a sense that we can look at, okay, this isn't working. How can I shift it to make things work? Or maybe I need to know this information to keep myself safe because I've had this experience before that ended in a really bad way. So I think the information we receive from our negative mind is really important, but it's when we respond from that same mind that starts to create issues, because now we're responding from emotion and we're reacting from emotion instead of taking that information, putting it into our neutral mind and be like, okay, what is this actually about? Who does this actually belong to? What is the appropriate response that's going to help resolve what's happening instead of making it worse? So I think if we can start discerning that within ourselves and in our minds, we can then start discerning it from what's coming from the outside world, like what's coming from media, what's coming from mandates and things like that. We can just start questioning and start to understand information better for ourselves.
So let's just loop back to the mandates, because I think this is where you and I become very passionate about mandates. And this is my personal belief on mandates, and you may like it, you may not like it, and it doesn't have to be yours. I actually do not believe that any governing body should be able to mandate what I choose to do for my health. Now, there may be repercussions, there may be things that I have to deal with, but it's based on my choices, not their choices. So would I like them to mandate healthy food? Of course. But with that being said, there's people out there that don't want that. They do not want anybody dictating what they can and can't eat. And I agree. I'm 100% on board with that. But what I would love to see is if our governing bodies started making it easier for their community, their country, their citizens to be able to afford and make healthy choices and make it affordable for them, and start charging more for the foods that have been clinically proven, research to back it up, that is going to cause ill health, that's going to cause obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, ADHD, all of these things, because that's where our healthcare money is going. So if we can free up healthcare because we're making it easier for people to afford healthy foods and healthier lifestyles, then I believe that more people would choose that route, whether that's true or not, but I don't believe, ultimately long-winded, I don't believe anything should be mandated when it comes to your health, what you put in your body, what you put on your body, regardless. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think freedom of choice, right? We have to take responsibility for our own choices. And I think the job of governing bodies is to educate and to create incentives to make healthier choices, like you were saying, and to look at these bigger companies that are deciding a lot for us. Like, who decided that cereal should be for breakfast? Kellogg's did. Nobody decided that. That if you look back in history and you look at ancient traditions and things like that, and you look at the way people were eating, I mean, this is a whole other topic, right, that we would do. And that wasn't the case. But because of marketing strategies, I mean, if you watch Mad Men, it's a show from the 50s, 60s, when they started really marketing on television and doing commercials. If you start to really pay attention to what they are speaking to in that show, it's like, okay, how do we manipulate the population to buy our product? That's their job. And they did that really well. And now it's become a belief that you eat cereal first thing in the morning. You pump your body up with sugar first thing in the morning. So in the past, if you look at, doctors used to recommend that you should smoke. It's healthy. It's pregnant women can smoke, but that shifted. They used to take the thymus gland out because they didn't know what to do with it, because they would see that it was expanding in some kids. So they would just yank it out. They would spray DDT on children to clean them. So there are so many things that have been done that we now know better and should shift. And that's going to keep happening. We're going to keep learning. So I think the governing body's job is to keep that mind open for the population. And then when we have facts on, like, this food causes cancer, this color number, yellow number 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, can lead to these cancers or these neurological deficiencies, whoever is using that is getting fined. That is what I think the government should be able to do. And give all the information, like wine companies, labels. Where are the labels about what's in the wine? They don't need to do that. The government should mandate that they need to do that, so the consumer can look at it and be like, do I want to put this in my body or not? And then there comes that freedom of choice. So yeah, fully agree. Freedom of choice.
Excuse me.
So important. Bless you.
Thank you. I think most people would like to be given the choice as to how they choose to live their life. And that's my big hope, is that, you and I may not agree on what we choose to do, how we choose to eat. Like, you and I eat, I wouldn't say very differently, but we eat differently enough. I respect your decision to choose, how you eat, how you feed your family, because that's what's right for you guys and that's what's working. And, I'm pretty sure that you feel the same way. For, how I choose to eat and how I choose to cook for my family. And yet we can still be, best of friends and support and love one another. And I would really love to see more people doing this across all walks of life. So religion, politics, choice of how you eat. Are you carnivore? Are you vegan? Or are you something in between? Do you choose to do the V word with your family? VAXX. And if you do, that's more than fine, as long as you're okay with it. And everybody else should stay out of your family's business. That is really what I would love to see happen, with the world over the next, it's not going to happen in months, but over the next few years.
Yeah, just be kind. I think the more we can hold our beliefs in like an open palm rather than so constricted that we get so stuck in it and now we have to defend that belief, even if there's moments of like, oh wait, maybe this needs to shift, but we can't now because now we're standing our ground. I think that flexibility piece, keeping your mind flexible, keeping your heart flexible so that it's open. And if we can teach that to our kids, then they're going to grow up doing that as well for each other. And that's how we shift the world. Mandates can, it creates this, like, if you think about when your parents try to mandate things on you, right? What was the first response as children? We want to rebel against it. If I tell my youngest, we're not eating that, I'm eating it. So, there's this like innate thing in humanity to rebel against something that is pushed on us. So like, how do we change that is I think, to be kind and to see beliefs as they are, not as fact. There's relative truth and then there's absolute truth. So being able to discern, I just feel like it goes back to that discernment again.
And I do think that there is a time to rebel. If there is something that is being mandated that is fundamentally against your belief, your education, it's not just a belief at that point, your education, then I do believe it is our right to stand up against it and say, no, this is not right, this is not okay, because we should never be mandated or forced to do something that we are uncomfortable with. That's just not okay. That's against like every law against freedom. And we in Canada and the United States are supposed to be living in a free country. And so we should have the ability to do things and make choices for ourselves as long as they're not going to hurt or, hurt somebody else ultimately, right? Like there's that fine line. But, the big thing, I guess, that I want everybody to understand from this episode is, one, understand where the information you're getting is coming from. And then two, make both an educated and informed decision off of it. And from there, that's really going to help guide you along the path in which you need to go. And then ultimately, it all comes back to being kind. So being kind to one another, we don't have to all have the same beliefs or the same thought processes, but we can be kind to one another. We can respect other people having a difference of opinion. Because guess what, guys? If we all thought the same, we'd be boring. This would be very boring.
So boring. There'd be no color in the world. It would be so boring. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
So what is it that you want people to get from this? Like, what are the top 2-3 things that you're hoping will spark a thought process in people?
Yeah, I think similar to what you said is discerning the information, but first from within, like really pausing and asking yourself why you're having an emotional response or why you're having the response that you're having in your own self, and then looking at the information that's coming from the outside world. Like, where is it coming from? Who's funding the information? Who's just being able to discern and investigate, like be your own detective in your life so that you can make the choices that you need. And then the last one is the kindness piece. Just be kind. We all have different beliefs. We all have different upbringings. We all have different traumas and experiences, and ways that we're walking on this earth are so different. And we cannot expect the other to completely understand where we are. But what we can do is remain open and steady and willing to understand another. Because I fully believe that we are all reflections of one another. I feel like we're all connected. And this whole thing has proven that globally we are all connected, no matter what your color of skin or where you're from, what you believe when it comes to religion, we are all connected as humans. So I think the more we can go into that connection and understand the other as ourselves, I feel like that is what's going to shift the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, guys, if you want to continue this conversation on mandates, regardless of what the mandate is, come to the Women in Wellness Facebook group, start a chat, ask us a question, and, we can keep this going, because realistically, this isn't an easy topic, and there's no one answer. There's not even, well, I think there's one right answer, which is mandates should not be put across the board for everybody. But that's neither here or there, because that even there is a very gray area. So let's keep this discussion going. If this is something that is near and dear to your guys' heart, and, stay tuned, because there'll be more, I suppose, I don't know, would you say this is controversial or just more bringing awareness?
I think it's more awareness. I mean, again, someone can receive it as a controversy for sure, if that's the lens that they're wearing. But I mean, I can bring up a little controversy just with the word mandate. As you were saying it, I'm like, there's the word man in there. I love men. My husband's a man. My boys are men. But the world that we've been living in, that word that I always can never say, patriarchal world.
Patriarchal?
Yes, that has brought us to this place that needs to shift. Now think about it. The word man is in there. And we may just have to reframe that word, change our relationship to it. Just a total side note that my crazy mind was going into while you were talking.
So if you guys want to talk about the meaning behind mandate,
yes,
come to the group. And,
that's right.
Let's get that conversation going. And we look forward to seeing you guys in there, so that we can have, very kind, open conversations about, controversial topics. Because right now, I think everything that's going on in this world is controversial, depending on, just like you said, which lens you're looking through it. So we're trying to be as, I want to say, neutral as possible. If you really want my opinion, ask me in the group, and I will have no problem giving you, my thoughts on things that work for me and my family, not telling you what will work for you or yours. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I love it. So yes, and message, just be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your neighbor, be kind to your family, be kind to your community. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, guys, start thinking, start being kind, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you've been enjoying the Women in Wellness podcast, please take 2 minutes to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes.
This helps more women find the podcast to get the information they have been searching for.
This way we can truly change the world one woman at a time.
Remember, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook,
where we're sharing information with women every single day.
Join us next week for another episode of Women in Wellness.
And as always, thank you for listening.